Hello and welcome back to Mafia Story Comparison, a series looking at the differences between the original Mafia and the 2020 remake. Today we are going to be looking at Intermezzo 1. This brings us forward to 1938 and the cafe where Tommy is talking with Detective Norman. The scene starts with Norman reacting to Tommy's story so far, and then they discuss the rivalry between Salieri and Don Morello. There's also a cutaway to a scene of Morello getting in a car accident and then killing the driver of the other car. So far the biggest change we've seen is in the characterization of Tommy, and now we get to see the influence of that on the conversation between Norman and Tommy. In the remake, Tommy wanted to join the Mafia to improve his life, and so the conversation is about that choice.
So that's how a regular palooka goes from cabbie to mob enforcer overnight, is it? Just dumb luck?
Didn't feel that way at the time. Me parking on that particular street, taking a break just when Paulie and Sam are coming around the corner, what are the odds? It felt like, I don't know, like someone was watching out for us.
He rejects Norman's idea that he joined the Mafia out of dumb luck, and instead implies that it was some kind of fate. This is him trying to rationalize his choice. He wants to feel like he did the right thing. This is setting up a story of a proactive character who's made a questionable choice in the hopes that it will help him out in the long run and now has to deal with the consequences. In the original, he was forced into the Mafia. He didn't have a choice, and so the conversation is about his actions as a result of that.
You were all right with killing people? Usually people have a problem with that.
You know, I ain't one of those people with a thirst for blood. I don't need violence in my life, and I don't look for trouble, but I also don't have any remorse. They wanted to outsmart us, so we had to outsmart them. No excuses.
He tells Norman that he's okay with killing people because they were trying to kill him. He's rationalizing his actions. This is setting up the story of a reactive character who's had to do questionable things in order to save his own life, and now has to deal with the consequences of that. Now, there's nothing wrong with either of these characterizations, but I think you will agree that they are different. And as we've seen, the remake isn't really changing the mission structure. So the trouble is that we have two different Tommies who are now forced to follow the same plot, even when they have to do things that don't make sense with their character. Another change is that in the remake, Morello's group is said to be much bigger than Salieri's.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. Back then, Salieri didn't have the run of the city. For every buck Salieri made, Don Morello would turn 10. He paid off cops, politicians, judges, and anyone he couldn't buy, he scared into looking the other way.
In the original, it's Salieri who seems to have the bigger group.
The only one who worried us was Morello. He wanted to be the big cheese, which Salieri couldn't let him do. Salieri had no intention of being in second place.
I think the remake made Salieri's group out to be smaller so that he's more sympathetic, as everybody likes the underdog. This also makes Tommy out to be more heroic, as he's helping the underdog fight against the big bad dog. On the other hand, the original uses the characterization of the two Dons to make Salieri seem like the good guy.
Salieri built his respect as a businessman. Everybody knew that they didn't need to fear him if they did what they should. They knew that if they needed something, they could come to Mr. Salieri. Morello was just a mean bastard. He built his power through violence. Even his friends feared him.
But I don't think it's trying very hard, because Salieri and Morello are equally responsible for what Tommy has been made to do, and so, in some sense, they're both the bad guy. This brings us to the cutaway scene of Morello, and the biggest change is who hits whom. In the original, it's the other driver that hits Morello's car, while in the remake, it's Morello who hits the other car. This change leads into a non-change. In the original, the other driver gives this as his excuse.
I was driving slowly, Mr. Morello. I don't know how,
And the remake keeps this line.
I was driving real slow.
Except we've already seen that the driver was stopped at the intersection when he was hit by Morello, so this line doesn't really make any sense anymore. And this shows the issue with the remake. It likes to make changes and then return to the original script, except that the punchline doesn't make sense because the setup has already changed. Another change is that in the remake the driver is given a name.
You hear anything about Joey Crackers?
This sets up a discussion after the scene about Morello's motive.
Someone spun you a tale, pal. You got an informant right there says Morello made a mint every time Crackers went to the mat.
That's true, too. And still, Morello left that poor sap dead in the street. Head all caved in.
That don't square.
Well, maybe the Don knew Joey's career was on the downhill. Or maybe he was trying to scare some other guy into paying up. Who knows? Don Salieri chalked it up to Morello not being able to think straight when he was mad.
So this sets up two possible explanations for this scene. Either Morello is cold and calculating, and he arranged this whole thing so he had an excuse to kill the driver to send a message to anybody who might cross him, or it was an actual accident and Morello killed the other driver because he's mean and violent and has a temper. The calm look on Morello's face as he's killing the driver seems to imply the former. But it's definitely not clear how the game wants us to think about this character, which is not a good place to be at the end of the introduction for your supposed main antagonist. The original says he's mean, and then shows that he's mean.
No, sir,
No! Bastard gets in my way!
And personally, I find the original to be a much more compelling scene. There's no question what kind of character the game wants you to think Morello is. Well, that's it for this video. Next time we'll return to the past for some fair play. Thanks for watching.